The time is now, episode 324.
You're not behind. AI is moving very fast. Everyone's feeling overwhelmed by it. And overall, you're not behind if you're at least just thinking about it and starting to play with it.
Welcome to The Time Is Now, the podcast for mission-driven solopreneurs ready to take action and go from invisible to in demand. I am your host, Emel Deregi. My mission is to help you cut through the noise, get crystal clear on your strategy, and position yourself as the go-to expert in your field. But this podcast isn't just about marketing. It's also about building your resilience and staying ahead of the shifts in our world so you can be the leader and change maker you truly are. This is your time to create more growth, alignment, and impact in your business. As solo entrepreneurs, we have to wear so many different hats. And one of them is marketing that can be so consuming, especially for small business owners who have to juggle so many different things. But thanks to AI today, we have so many opportunities to save time, simplify how we show up, but also create more with less efforts. However, if you're just like me, you might also feel that it can feel very overwhelming because there's so much information out there, so many tools, so many things to learn, but also so many concerns about where AI is taking our society, so many questions out there. And on top of it, we might not have the bandwidth or even the desire, frankly, to put ourselves into all the learning curve and all the changes are happening, knowing that even once you start learning, things also evolve and change very quickly. So that is why I brought to you today our great guest, MG. She's a marketing and AI consultant, educator, and two-time best-selling author who's helping business owners reclaim their time and grow faster using the power of AI. In the last 3 years, M has taught over 1,500 small business owners how to use AI tools to save hours each week, improving their marketing and create systems that actually make business easier. I personally had the pleasure to be part of M programs. We actually just left one of her calls right now. And I can honestly say that it made a huge, huge difference. It helped me cut through the noise, create my own AI solutions that feel really aligned. What I love about M is that she's constantly on top of things, analyzing what's happening in the AI world, distilling it for us and simplifying for us. So I'm so, so excited to have her on the show so that she can help us navigate this crazy time. So MG, thank you so much for being here and welcome to The Time Is Now. We should keep it.
Yeah, I'm on a really important call. Where's Dad? Where's Dad? What do you mean he's not home? Okay, so Dad's on his way home? He's going to be grumpy if he sees you've come in here because he knows I'm on an important call. So I'll talk to you later. Oh my gosh. You should definitely keep that last bit in there.
So keeping that.
The last thing you said was, welcome to The Time Is Now. And I could hear her coming down. I was like,
I'm so keeping that. This is real life, right? And I love it.
Yes.
You know, I was very quickly attracted to your work because you have this way of being super authentic, super fun. And these are two values that I really, really appreciate myself a lot. But I would love our listeners today to get to know a little bit about you before we dive into the topic I just introduced, which is this crazy vault that has been opening to us with AI. So could you tell us, how did you get to where you are today? You were a teacher before, and now you're actually teaching marketers how to use AI. That's a big leap. So how did you get to what you do today?
Yes, and I will summarize it as much as possible. In fact, the word you said before, distill, I really liked that. I haven't used that word in my marketing, but I quite like it. I'll distill it down to a simplified version. But I started my career as a marketer. So I did my marketing degree, went into the corporate world, hated every minute of it. It just doesn't match my vibe. And left that thinking, I just want to go and help the world. I want to go and change the world. Thought becoming a school teacher was a great idea. Did that, just had to do like a 1-year graduate diploma to become a teacher, and was a teacher for 7 years, but that burned me out because anyone who's worked in that world knows that it's a lot of work, but not so much reward, didn't feel that rewarding, felt just kind of draining. Then, when I started my first business, because I had that marketing knowledge and understanding, I was able to grow that first business as a personal trainer with a small gym quite quickly. And that evolved into me helping women in business with their marketing just naturally. People just started asking me. And that's like the natural evolution that I think a lot of us go through in business. When AI came out, I started using that very quickly. Even before ChatGPT, there was a platform called Jasper. And so I was using that platform and showing some of my clients in marketing what I was doing. And they were like, this is so cool. I made the decision 3 years ago now to go all in with AI, and I burnt down half of my business. I had a six-figure mastermind that I was running at the time, and I got rid of it because I needed time to learn. And I actually looked at doing a data science degree, which I'm so glad I didn't do. But I was thinking, oh my gosh, I need a data science degree to understand this and be the expert in it. And I was looking up all the things to reskill, and then realized actually this is changing quicker than what I could possibly do a data science degree. And thank goodness, because I would have only just been finishing that degree right now. And I just self taught myself and made a lot of mistakes in the process. And now 100% the work that I do is based around AI, but it's with the marketing background because you can learn AI and you know marketing, right? But there's so much AI content or AI marketing or AI workflows out there that actually take customers or clients on a journey that don't serve the purpose of the brand well. And so my frame is always looking at we're wanting to improve the brand, not make the brand worse. And that is really what's happening right now, and brings me to the work that I do now, working with women in my membership. And also I also have some one-to-one clients, very few, because my goal is to educate. And I have my course where I educate women every quarter. We run that course because it changes every 5 minutes anyway, to learn how to implement AI into your business, marketing, operations, and then the ripple effect from that is into your life as well.
Yeah. And you do have, I just want to say a side note. I work a lot with my clients about business models, and I do love your business model as well. And I see how it's so relevant in your case to also have a membership because things are changing all the time. So that to keep the regular update, it's fantastic to actually be part of a place where just every month there's check-ins. Actually, every week there's something happening where you can keep us updated. So this is really cool. I have to say, I really enjoyed that. And I actually also heard you many times talk about the amount of time AI has saved you as a mom. We were just having this interaction with your kids who just showed up in the interview, which was a lot of fun. Life as a mom has more than just the business to take care of. So I'm wondering, what impact did AI make for your own business?
Honestly, it's interesting, this question, right? Because it has helped me save a lot of time in my business, because obviously AI, the whole purpose of it is to streamline what you do so that you don't have to do all of it so manually. However, I will say, because I am at the forefront of this and I am positioning myself at the forefront of it, I actually don't save time long term because I'm constantly having to learn. Now, this is not going to be the case for anyone else, because if you're not positioning yourself as an AI expert, you don't need to be at the forefront of everything. But I spend hours, and I'm not exaggerating, I spend hours every single day, probably at least 2 hours, learning, playing with things, seeing what works, what doesn't, so that I can best educate. And so while it has saved me a heap of time in, my own marketing and my own operations, I've basically replaced that with learning. The good news about this is that I love learning. I have ADHD and I like shiny objects. And so, because AI is always changing, I get to feed that need for myself. It gives me dopamine. So it fits really well for me. And my goal is for it to fit really well for whoever I'm working with, because I also do work with people that have ADHD, but maybe they're not interested in being at the forefront of all the things that happen in AI. What they are interested in is creating space for the things that they're interested in. And so it's the same process, right? So that's business. And then life, because what I do in my business is really learning about skills that you how you think differently with AI. When it comes to planning things in life, which as someone with ADHD, I don't do very well, AI helps me a lot with that too. So we're on this amazing year away this year, and which is part of the reason my kids are in here, because usually I would have finished up work, but because I'm working in different time zones, it's like, oh, trying to make it all work. And having AI to help me plan, organize the things that we're wanting to do while we're away is huge, because that can just take up so much of your time. And I have, projects set up in Claude in my AI to help plan all of those things. And it knows my kids. It knows one of them's gluten free. It knows, what our preferences are for travel, what our time preferences are, like all of those kinds of things. So it's like I have a travel agent that knows my business, but I have access to it all the time, or knows my business, knows my family, which is awesome.
Yeah, I do want to highlight how I admire the fact that the business that you've built today has allowed you to take your family for sabbatical to New Zealand. You've come from Australia and moved to New Zealand for a year, I guess. This is like a test
Yeah,
trying to figure
13
out
months.
what. Yeah, and if I've heard you say that if it wasn't for AI, you wouldn't have been able to do that.
Exactly. I mean, I run this business in a way that allows me to be anywhere. My team, I do actually have another team member in New Zealand, but they're in, one of them's in Bali, Melbourne, Philippines. You know, the online world that we have is amazing. So that is a component of it, but also AI. Like I'm working 25 hours a week while I'm here,
Yeah, yeah,
and allowing me to be able to scale. And 20, and how many of those hours? Probably 10 of those hours are me learning things. So
yes. Yeah,
yeah,
and actually, another thing that I want to highlight is exactly that about the fact that you have replaced all the tasks that already are so consuming for solo entrepreneurs and small business owners around marketing and sales and all of that with actual learning, which for me reminds me of a book. I don't know if you ever read that book called it's going to come back, but it's all about being a visionary in your business versus an implementer. The
rocket
Rocket.
fuel.
Rocket fuel. Thank
Yeah,
you.
I know that
The
one.
rocket fuel. And it feels like at the time it was all about finding your implementer, right? Finding that second person in the business that is more about implementing and you focusing on the vision. And it seems like AI has become that implementer.
Well, I want to say yes and no on
Yeah.
this,
Tell me more.
because yes, AI, okay, maybe rocket fuel needs to be rewritten, because
Yeah.
reality is, maybe that could be my next book. I
Here we
probably
go.
can't call it Rocket Fuel 2.0. That would be a problem. But the reality is I still have that person in my business. My team has grown since I started using AI, but in a different way. My business has
Mhm.
also grown. So it's relative. And the reason for that is because my team are empowered with AI. They use AI. So they oversee the tasks, because I don't want to oversee the tasks either, right? As the CEO, someone that's wanting to learn, create content, I don't actually want to be managing the tasks, but I want someone to do that. And so I do still have those people in my business, but they are using AI so that they get to do the more meaningful work in the business. They get to get rid of the tedious tasks, but they just make sure that they happen. Because the reality is AI can do a lot, but it's also not perfect. It can make mistakes. And so there still needs to be a human involved. So anyone that's like, oh my God, I'm going to be able to like just get rid of all of my team, you might be able to create a leaner team if you're, wanting to kind of stay where you are and you're just wanting to keep, uh, not necessarily scale, but just reduce your costs, reduce your time that you're spending in your business. Then yes, you could reduce your team size. But the reality is, unless you actually still want to be overseeing all of the AI things, it's helpful to have another
Yeah.
implementer.
I'm experiencing the same thing. And one of the things I love about your programs is that they also include training our own team. And that's what I have done. And it made a big difference. We talk a lot about how AI is removing jobs, and it will happen. I'm certain of that. But at the same time, if we actually train our teams to be more uh, AI aware and being able to transfer some of the repetitive skills into AI tools so that they can do the thinking part and the overseeing part, it does make big difference. I've seen it with my own team. So this is really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? They'll
Yeah.
stay with you for longer as a team member if they are given the
Uh-huh.
tools to do their job better, more effectively, and like get rid of the mundane things in their world. And they'll also feel like you're including them as part of the AI process rather than, trying to get rid of them with AI.
Yeah. So we talked a lot now about the overview of AI and what it means, but the whole discussion I would love to have today is about how to look at AI in marketing, especially for solo entrepreneurs. And I'm curious to see what are the areas that you use AI in your marketing, first of all. How do you
Well,
use AI for your marketing?
that's a good question. There's a lot, and there's lots of smaller pieces. And just bear in mind as I share this, this has been a work in progress for years now. Really, it's not something that I just did yesterday. And so if you hear this and you're like, oh, that would be cool, just know that it's not necessarily something you're just going to be able to go boom done. So a lot of what I use AI for are the things that are the behind the scenes connection rather than the actual connection. So connection is really important because I have a personal brand. People trust me. And so I still do some of the manual things where it comes to, like I'm showing up to calls still as me. I'm not bringing in my AI avatar. I'm still creating content with my face, not a fake AI avatar. So there's certain things I won't do. Everything else has some kind of AI component. So for example, in my lead generation strategy, there's a lot of AI involved because it means I can reach more people. So I have a AI system that helps me to create lead magnets like within 5 minutes. If there's some kind of trending topic, I can get AI to create a lead magnet and set up a funnel that goes through my Instagram, through my emails, so that there's a brand new lead magnet on that trending topic that people get access to immediately, and it grows my email list. And it takes me 5 minutes from ideation to it being ready to go. And then there's a piece of content that just rolls with that. So that's one thing that I've set up. Content repurposing has been a very big focus of mine this year. I'm very good at creating content on Instagram, but then with AI, let's amplify that, right? How can we get that out to multiple places? So set up a system in Claude that takes a piece of content and repurposes it out into blogs, email newsletters, and LinkedIn as well, because they're all slightly different strategies to what Instagram might look like. And there is an approval process there. There's a human in the loop because there's no way in hell I am going to be like, yes, just post that automatically to LinkedIn. Who cares what happens? I always still look over it personally, but it's once a week for 5 minutes that I look over those and then approve them and off they go. Those are probably the two like main systems that I have in terms of marketing. But then there's also all of the AI behind the scenes that support marketing from the perspective that it gives a better experience to clients, for example, or it means that we get to work faster behind the scenes and therefore have more time to give to clients. So one example that I shared on, I think, the group call we had earlier was just getting calls automatically loading up to YouTube without us having to download, upload, all that kind of stuff, so that no team member has to spend any time sitting there doing that boring, mundane job. It's done automatically, and therefore we have more time to serve our customers in more, meaningful ways. So even though that's more of an operational thing, I still look at it and I think, but this allows me to build a better brand, which is marketing.
One of the most important thing in marketing is indeed to increase your email list. So I love that. That's one of the first focus that you put into your AI into. In terms of tools, there's so many tools out there, right? And you're comfortable with many, but what would you say your go-to top three tools that you would 100% recommend to get the basics of marketing with AI?
Okay, top three. And I did a post on this recently, so I'm glad you asked that question because I'm like, I've got an exact answer. If I could only have one, just for like, if I could only have one, it would be Claude right now. And obviously, we're talking about this in April 2025, 2026. Oh my gosh, I lost a year. 2026. And that could change in a couple of months. But right now, if it was just one, I would use Claude because Claude writes really well for marketing. So the copy is generally better. You still have to train it, but it's generally better than some of the others. And it also can start doing work for you using the co-work component of Claude once you've got the paid version. That's one. I also could not live without ManyChat, which is connected to your DMs and your Instagram posts where, someone comments a certain word and then that triggers a flow in their DMs, so that's a lot of my lead generation right there. And the third one would be make.com, which is more of an automation software than an AI software, but it connects in with AI. And so I do a lot still just with Claude, or even inside my GHL platform, which is, the CRM. But the reality is there's lots of like little automations that we want to be able to happen that can, like, one simple automation like the YouTube video one that I just shared, that can just save, like an hour each week, but it's such a quick automation to set up on make.com. And you can integrate that with things like OpenAI or Claude as well to get different outputs. So those would be my three.
Amazing. So clear. And, I see that a lot of the marketing we're talking about are most like the middle of the funnel.
Mhm.
And I'm curious to see if there's any experience or examples you have of how to use AI for the top of the funnel, which is how to get visibility, how to get people into your world. Is there anything that you've seen or examples you can share? Because I feel like the middle of the funnel is easier to use AI for rather than the top. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I guess it depends on your top of funnel strategy. So that's
Uh-huh.
the first thing, right? Is don't use AI until you actually know what your strategy is. You can get AI to help you with your strategy, but you also need to know why you have that as part of your top of funnel strategy, right? So for me, my top of funnel is things like this, going onto podcasts, right? So say I want to get onto more podcasts because then I get in front of different audiences, then you go, right, well, how can I use AI for that? Maybe I have a Claude scheduled task every week that researches the top 10 podcasts on a certain topic, looks at some of the most current conversations and writes a pitch to those, drafts it in my email to say, hey, I'd love to come in. I've seen you've recently talked about this topic. How about we extend on that? Da 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 da. So it's not necessarily going, because top of funnel, there's so many different ways. It's not just going what works for top of funnel, it's what works for you. And then how can you use AI for that? So that would be one example. Another one is that is relatively straightforward is if you use social media, your insights and reach from those insights is data that you can get AI to then help you with. So I have got in Claude Cowork a Monday morning automation that looks through my insights on Instagram, looks at my posts, reels, everything from the last week, and it analyzes what had good reach, what had good engagement, and then looks at the content from those and tells me, why that might have gone well, why certain things might not have gone so well. And funnily enough, I actually do pay someone to, like a contractor, to personally review my stuff. And I've said to her recently, I'm like, my Claude is telling me the same thing you're telling me, which I'm still paying her because the way she does things for me is still different, in the sense that she's brutal and she's like, no, don't do it this way, do it. Like, she's so much more brutal than Claude. But it's good for me to see that even if she's telling me something and I'm like arguing with her, Claude's backing it up. And so she's right. I can't argue with her because I'm like seeing that data from two points of view as well. So
Yeah.
that's another top of funnel strategy, because if you're wanting reach on social media, you need to have that data of what content is reaching and therefore repeat that content.
This is so good. You overflew through your explanation on something that I wanted to talk about. I was having this conversation with you where I felt like since my clients are using AI now, I feel like I have more work than before. I feel like I
Interesting.
have
Yeah.
to review so much more, especially when they're just at the beginning of the journey, right? Once we have set up the strategy and all of that, it gets a bit better. But I feel like I'm questioning what is your point? What is your opinion around the fact that a lot of people think that AI might lead to actually not needing anymore to know much about marketing? What do you think about that?
I think it's the opposite. I think
Hmm.
what we're seeing right now, and the stats show this, is that there is AI slop everywhere. Now, AI slop is basically just really badly written marketing. And and also visuals that are just like ridiculous, don't even make sense. And so we're seeing the evidence now of how that is negatively impacting businesses. And that's because most businesses, unless you're starting a marketing business, you don't go in knowing anything about marketing. And you're also not able to think outside of the box because it's just not something you're practiced with. AI it's generative, it can be creative, but it's pulling from things that already exist, right? And so someone that's in marketing knows how to ask the questions in order to expand beyond the kinds of language and concepts that already exist. And I often work, with marketing agencies as well to help them explain to clients the benefit. But I also say, you could just say to your clients, for a month, how about you just go out and use AI and see the results without having us view it and see what happens? Because the reality is that expertise, that human expertise, is still huge in business, right? It's the same with anything in business. Unfortunately, you need to know something about everything in business. Like, you need to understand your profit and loss. And you may not be an accountant, but you've got to understand it, right? You need to understand a bit about marketing. You need to understand a bit about AI. But you don't need to understand everything about those concepts. What you do need is some experts that are your go-to in those concepts to help you navigate when you need to go deeper with it. And marketing
Yeah.
is one of those things.
I really believe that the output quality depends on the input quality,
100%.
right? What would be your advice then to those who are not necessarily knowledgeable of marketing or
Mhm.
don't have yet a really good strategy, but still are using AI?
Get the strategy first. I would honestly say that so I work, with different brand strategists sometimes, because I think if I'm working with a client and we're looking at AI, I'm going, you can't just plug into AI without knowing your brand voice. You can't make that up, because if you get AI to make that up, it's going to sound like AI. So it needs to be something especially when you're starting out, you need to have an actual brand strategist go through that with you, because otherwise you will just continually perpetuate the AI slop and your brand will not stand out. And that's the thing, right? Brands need to stand out. That's the whole point of marketing, is attention. You want to get attention. You don't get attention by being vanilla and looking like everybody else or sounding like everybody else. So that's my recommendation. And then if you've done that, you've been in business for a while, you've got all of those things, honestly, the number one tip is to read it out loud to yourself. And if it feels icky, it's probably not something you would say.
Right.
AI tends to over explain things, do too many analogies, or do lots of like short whiplash kind of sentences at the moment. And read it out loud. And if it feels clunky for you, it's probably not your brand voice. Something needs to change.
Yeah. And I do think that, right, strategy is everything. And I could see the difference between the clients who have done some work. I think it's also one thing that I'm wondering what's going to happen over time is that in order to give AI resources to do the work, we need to know our businesses. We need to know so for those who are starting out in business, they still need to, I think, to do a little bit of the work on their own before. I often say that to my clients who are in early journey. Start doing the copywriting on your own first. Start designing the slides on your own first. Start doing things on your own first of all, because you will need to figure out what is that voice of yours. But also, the more you have done it, the better you'll be able to not only guide the AI to do it, but also to judge the quality of the outcome.
Yeah, because AI needs feedback, right? And I often say this, and you've obviously been in my containers for long enough to know it's like you've got to give it feedback. But if you don't know what you want or the output that you want because you haven't done it before, then you can't give it feedback. And you'll just go, oh, that's not right. But you've got nothing, there's no foundation, there's no baseline of what is right. And so, yes, it does mean writing it. But now with technology, it's easier than ever to start doing those things like voice to text out, some of the messages that you want to get across in your marketing. You don't even have to type it. And then, get AI to ask you questions that you answer rather than getting it to write it for you. Get it to ask you questions because that can then help elicit some more information. And that
Exactly.
way, you're using AI without getting it to do the things for you from the beginning.
Yeah. So we talked a lot about the quality and the importance of knowing your strategy, working on your marketing on your own first, and with the help of the experts that can help you if you don't have the expertise. I also want to talk now about something that happened a month or two. I don't know when was the whole buzz around ChatGPT, where everybody left GPT. And that was an interesting phase for me to watch you because I was really watching you. I was like, I can't
I
wait
feel
to
like
see what
everyone was
Em is gonna
watching.
do. And I was like, okay, what is she gonna do? And I was literally going to reach out. I said, I feel like Claude is still the better options. And I think in the beginning you were still hanging on to Chat GPT. I would love you if you could just take us through that journey to explain what has shifted for you. Most of your content was around ChatGPT at the beginning, and now you're more and more leaning towards Claude. Take us through that. I'm curious to see how that went for you.
Yes. And so my content is very much reflective of what I'm currently doing in my business, right? Like there's so much hype, there's so many trends, there's all these things that are changing all of the time. And I'm very aware that that feels really jarring for so many people. And I want to not add to that. I will take things a little bit slower, even though I'm sure for most people it doesn't look like it's slow. I'm not within the next hour of something landing going, oh my gosh, we're changing to this, because you can't do that in business. You can't go, right, something new is out. I'm going to change everything. Because every time you do that, you actually slow yourself down. It's that whole multitasking myth, right? If we're trying to do multiple things at once, every time we change, we lose time. And so I was slow to make that. Well, slow, I
Yeah,
don't
it
know,
was a week
slow
or
in the
two.
grand scheme of things to make that shift, because I was looking at the reasons people were moving, and the reasons people were moving at the beginning was very political. It was about what the US government had agreed to with OpenAI, and I'm also someone that questions what we see in the media and go, well, okay, yes, I don't like that that happened. I could just move and pay, like use my money to show where I want to have my values met. But at the same time, what has maybe Claude done that's not in the media, that, we don't know the full story about everything. And I think if we just look at news articles and make decisions off that, it's not actually a smart business decision. So I took some time to make that decision. And then when I did make the decision, I announced it to the world. Yes, a few weeks ago, I was saying I'm staying with ChatGPT. And now I will openly admit that actually I think Claude is going to be a better option. But I also didn't want to create that shift for so many people who then felt like, oh my gosh, now I have to learn this new platform, unless that was even necessary, because that it creates this cycle of overwhelm for everyone, which, if you're feeling that, it is completely normal. Everyone's in that kind of state at the moment with AI. Now I can see from, moving across, using Claude, using other platforms like Manus as well that are similar to Claude. I think Claude is going to win the next iteration of this race. It already is, particularly for business owners, because it has the ability to do so much for you, versus ChatGPT is more just like, if you don't have a business, ChatGPT is going to be great. It's going to be fine. But Claude, I think, is much better positioned for business owners because you can get it to start doing work for you. Whereas if you don't own a business, that might not be so necessary.
I'm pretty sure that most of our listeners are very familiar with ChatGPT and Claude. These are the two top AI tools, especially if you're sole entrepreneurs. You mentioned Menace. Could you tell us what would be the difference then with Menace?
So Manus is now owned by Meta, but it wasn't previously. And the reason I now am quite interested in Manus is because it's owned by Meta. And obviously, as business owners, we probably use Meta in some way, shape, or form. And so the benefit of Manus is that you can post directly. So you can create carousels and everything in Manus through chatting with it. It develops the carousels and then it will post it to Instagram or Facebook, or it will post it to your ads and it will update your ads and it will look at your analytics for you. And almost, I want to say almost acts like an ads manager. Again, it comes back to that uh, knowing enough about ads, I guess, to be able to get it to act as your ads manager. I don't think it replaces ads managers yet. And I'm not sure if it ever will. It's more that it can enhance what you can do with your Facebook ads, but it also has similar features to Claude in the sense that you can create projects, you can create artifacts. It doesn't write as well in terms of marketing copy as Claude, but like for me, for example, I'm quite good at editing my copy. I'm good at training AI, and so it wouldn't make that much of a difference, but I still use Claude more than anything.
Okay, I haven't prepared you for this question, but I think you'll manage it well. As you're talking, I'm thinking, let's imagine we have three steps, right, of three phases in solo entrepreneurship. We're in the starting point, the middle point, and the more advanced, like, kind of businesses. What do you think each of these three phases, the biggest use of AI should be?
All of them is what I
Uh,
want to say.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, but I would say the ones that are going to get the best results are the ones in the middle
Mm-hmm.
because, and it depends, So, for example, I've done workshops with businesses that have been in business for 10 plus years and they're very set in the way that they do things, and their systems might not actually be working very well, for this time, this age. And so they can be a lot slower to pick up, but it's also very beneficial for them too. It's just they've got to start breaking things at that point to
Mm-hmm.
fix them. When you're a
Mm-hmm.
complete startup, as we were saying before, you really need to get some of those foundational things in place first because that might not be using AI so much. You need to get clear on, what your positioning is, what your outcomes are, how you want to do things in your business, all of that. Whereas the middle is more where you've got those foundations, you've got some runs on the board, but you're not completely stuck in your way. It's kind of more malleable at that point because you may need to, when you AIify things, some processes might need to change. And I think at that point, that's where you're more likely to benefit the most from using it. Does that answer your question?
100%. I hope the listeners, you are hearing it and you can get it, but I feel like it's pretty straightforward. And I do agree with you a lot in the middle because you need to have done some marketing to start making the best of the tool. And then if you have, and I'm a little bit in between two and three where I have some things that at the moment I feel like I'm not ready to change things. It's
Yeah,
just so heavy. I spent a
I'm there too.
decade implementing. I'm like, this is breaking the thing. But I do think that at some point I would have to have the courage to break things to rebuild them. I wonder how are you navigating this journey?
Think it can be quite painful. So that's why it is hard when
Yeah.
you have got a system that's maybe been in place for, 5 to 10 years and then all of a sudden you're like, oh, we've got to break that and start again. And there will be messy moments in that, which can be quite frustrating. And it's also really hard to know when to do it because it's like, okay, I could do it now, or if I wait 6 months, maybe there'll be a different tool that exists that makes that even easier, but you don't know because we can't predict the future. And so it's like, I have made some mistakes where I bit the bullet a few years ago and I paid like $10,000 to have this particular bot built. And $10,000. And then now, like, I could build that in a morning by myself and pay nothing really. But I knew that at the time that that could happen, right? And that there was that potential, and I still learned a lot in the process. So I guess it's almost like a mindset thing, right? Like you're not necessarily going to get it perfect, but at the end of the day, you'll learn something in the process. And as long as you use those learnings to continue to implement other things, then it's still been worth it.
Yeah. I totally agree. And for me, it's also about priorities, understanding what is my top priority right now in the business, but also in my life, because it is, it is, I feel like breaking everything will take time that will need to make in the schedule. so,
Yeah,
so that's
you've got to
also
create
something
that
that
time.
you have to create
One
that
thing at a
time. Yeah.
time. Don't break it all at
Exactly.
once.
That's what you always say. One thing at a time. I love it. I want to talk a
I
little
say
bit
it a lot.
about the whole ethical part of AI right now.
Mhm.
Um, I don't want to be distracted. I have two questions in my head right now. I'm going to focus on one first, one at the same time. But I'm going to start with authenticity. I told you
Mm.
many times how I love how you manage to use AI and still keep that voice and that authenticity. That's one of the main concerns. And I see a lot of people saying, "Oh, that's written by AI," and I see it too. "Oh, that's written by AI," right? So, how do you make sure to stay authentic and still leverage AI as much as you can?
Yes, it comes down to knowing what your authentic voice is to start with, right? And that because everyone's authentic voice is different, that's what makes it authentic. And that is why, as we've said, probably for the fifth time now, it's so important to have that foundational knowledge of your brand voice. And, if you're a personal brand, knowing what you want to be known for and getting really clear on that and making sure that your AI knows that, but also having your own framework of how you then look at your AI copy to make sure that it is authentic to you. So is it that, there's certain words that you wouldn't use, and you can train your AI to not say those certain words, but sometimes it still does it. It's like any employee, they sometimes going to have moments where they do things that they're not necessarily supposed to. So training it well, but also having a front and back end process with it so that at the beginning, you're giving it the right context, but at the end, you're also taking the time to check whether that's reading it through yourself and, reading it out loud, as I
Mhm.
suggested, or having your own almost like checklist of, okay, does it hit these points that I know from the foundational work that I've done is the message I want to get across to be authentically my brand.
Yeah. I think this is a great answer. And also, let's talk very quickly because we're kind of out of time, but about the ethical parts of AI, right? I'm curious to see where do you stand because for me, I'm my business, my podcast is all about being responsible solo entrepreneurs and in a way using our businesses a little bit as activists to actually speak up for the topics we believe in and support and having very clear values, right? And AI is challenging that. On one hand, we cannot ignore it, we cannot not use it. This is how I see it, at least. But at the same time, I'm constantly debating how far can I go with AI because of also the environmental impact, the privacy impact, as well as the actual bros that are behind it that I really don't stand in terms of I cannot. It's so hard for me to use the tools of people that I cannot align with in terms of values. I'm curious to know how you manage that.
Yeah. And you know what? I completely agree. And I actually feel we could do an entire podcast on this topic
Let's do that.
because there is so much and obviously we can't go like well deep into it right now. And also I'm more than happy after this if anyone wants to DM me. Like to share, this is my concern and what I do about that concern. Because I've heard all of the concerns, I've researched all of the concerns, and I do have concerns. I genuinely do have concerns about society, about government, about future, about power, about environment, all of those things. I genuinely do have concerns on, and overarching all of that, I have the theory that you keep your friends close and your enemies closer, because if we aren't in that system that's happening, whether we're in it or not, we can't do anything to change it. Right. And so that the way I look at it is that, and it's why I shared in that group call today that I actually have toggled on in my settings for Claude and ChatGPT and all of my AI to use my chats as part of its training because I will be talking to my AI about things that I think are important in the world. And if AI is going to long term be part of world decision making, I want my voice to be heard. It's a way for our voice to be heard. And
Mm.
without them even, they're not going, oh, MG's saying this. They don't give a damn about what I'm actually saying, but it's going into the data model, right? And so the reality is we know it's happening anyway. And our choices are go with it or avoid it. We can't avoid it really as business owners. And the only thing we can do are the things that are in our control. And having those conversations, so definitely like do the research, choose the options that feel the most aligned for you. Have conversations with people about it, like how are you doing this more ethically? For example, one of the tools that I'm now using for voice to text is a local large language model, so it's not getting pushed out into a cloud. having those conversations are important, and it's just going to be something that is ongoing, and working out what your own version of using it is, and how you can align with that, knowing that at the end of the day, yep, we don't have a choice. There's a lot of things we don't have a choice in the world. So we've just got to do the best with what we can. I am an optimist. I do think there's going to be, probably in the next 5 to 10 years, there's going to be some displacement. There's going to be economic impacts, definitely. And I'm just grateful that personally and for my own family, we're probably in a privileged position for that. But part of that is because I know what I know, because I can use it as a tool rather than it using me as the tool. So I think long term, like 5 to 10 years from now, things could look very different, but we all need to actually be having open conversations about it to be able to direct it in the way that would be more positive.
I kind of agree with you more for sure. But I do think there's so much to unpack here. So I'm going to have to
Yeah.
wait and have you again on the show, and
Yeah.
we'll see how things that evolve. But yeah,
I
it is
don't
a
think that
constant.
conversation is going to go away anytime soon. Like it's
No,
going to be one of the biggest conversations of the next decade for sure.
there's a lot to
Mm.
unpack there. Yeah. But thank you so much. And I just want to make sure that we know what is the best. I think you have some great resources as well for free for those who want to get started. Can you tell us more about it? And we'll send them over there.
Yes. So, I mean, first of all, go to my Instagram, and I'm sure you'll put the link in the show notes. But I do share, as I mentioned, my lead magnet process with AI. I share lots of freebies, but my main freebie that I update all the time is my starter pack. And the reason I update it all the time is because I can get AI to update it for me. And at the moment, it's got a prompting guide. And when I say a prompting guide, it's not just a list of prompts. It's how to just prompt better. And it's also got trainings on how to create a knowledge base so that you can get better outcomes from your AI. And my current list of AI tools. And I'm pretty sure in there it's also got a getting started with Claude uh,
It
training.
does. Yeah.
So it's definitely got a
Yeah.
step by
Yeah.
step in there.
Yeah.
So that's in there. And yeah, there'll be a link in the show notes for that as well.
Fantastic. So, my dear listeners, if you enjoyed this episode and want to get started and even get to know more about M's world, make sure to go to the show notes of this episode. You will find all the information she just mentioned. Go to thetimeisnow.biz/324. So, a last word before we end. If you had to say the full sentence, the time is now to, how would you finish that?
The time is now to rip the Band-Aid off and just go all in and play with AI and have fun with it.
Amen. I love it. It was amazing to have you on the show and to discuss this big topic. Thanks.
Thank you. And thank you so much for having me.
It's been a pleasure. My dear listeners, I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed having this chat with Em. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to reach out to her, like I mentioned earlier. And I can't wait to see you in the next episode. And stay tuned to grow your business with more alignment and impact.